There's a quiet mistake a lot of real estate investors make before they ever submit a loan application. It usually doesn't feel like a mistake. At first, it starts with a property, maybe a residential investment property here in Michigan, maybe something you saw online, maybe something an agent sent you, maybe a property you drove past and thought that could be a good rental. And at first, the numbers look interesting. So you start wondering, could I buy this? Could I qualify? Could this be the investment property that finally gets me started? But then the confusion hits. You start reading about DSCR loans. You hear they may be useful for self-employed investors. You hear they may focus more on the property than your personal tax returns. You hear terms like debt service coverage ratio, rental income, market rent, payment coverage, reserves, investor guidelines, and loan to value. And suddenly, what seemed exciting starts to feel unclear, because the real danger is not that you don't know everything. The real danger is shopping for investment properties before you understand what a lender may actually look at. That is how people waste time chasing the wrong property. That is how they get attached to numbers that may not work. That is how they confuse random online videos with real readiness. And that is why I created the DSCR readiness assessment, because there are a few key questions that can change how you look at an investment property. And most investors do not ask those questions early enough. They usually ask them after they find the property, after they get excited, after they start picturing the rent checks, after they run numbers on a spreadsheet that may or may not match what a lender actually wants to see. But by then, the pressure is already building. That is backwards. Before you chase the property, you need to understand the path. Most people think qualifying for a real estate loan is only about personal income, tax returns, W-2s, pay stubs, employment history, debt to income ratio. And for many traditional loans, those things can matter a lot. But investment property financing can be different. With a DSCR loan, the conversation may shift. Instead of only asking, how much income do you personally show on paper? A DSCR style review may ask a different question. Can the property's rental income help support the loan payment? That one shift is what most people miss, and it is also where a lot of the confusion begins. Because DSCR is not magic. It is not a loophole. It is not a guaranteed approval. And it does not mean every property works. But for the right investor, with the right property, in the right situation, it may open a different conversation than a traditional income-based loan. Especially if you are self-employed, especially if your tax returns do not show the full picture, especially if you are looking at a Michigan residential investment property and wondering, is this even worth exploring? That is the question the internet usually does not answer for you. You can watch videos, you can read lender pages, you can scroll through investor groups, but most of what you find either explains DSCR loans too broadly or makes them sound simpler than they really are, or gives you details without telling you what they mean for your situation. And that leaves you with the same question you started with. What should I do next? That is the gap the DSCR readiness assessment is designed to fill. It is not a full loan application. It is not a promise of approval. It is not meant to turn you into a mortgage expert. It is a simple first step to help you understand where you may stand. Because before you know whether a DSCR loan may fit, there are a few things worth looking at. Do you already have a property in mind? Do you know the estimated rent? Is the property likely to support the payment? How much down payment or equity may be involved? What is your general credit picture? What are you trying to do? And how soon are you hoping to move forward? Those questions matter. But here is the important part. You do not have to figure all of that out alone before taking the first step. You just need a clearer starting point. My name is Your Name, founder of Treeside Financial. I have been in the mortgage business since 2001, and I am a licensed mortgage loan originator. And one thing I have learned over the years is that people make better decisions when they are educated first, not pressured, not rushed, not buried in jargon educated. That is especially true with DSCR loans. Because if you are self-employed, or your income is harder to document in the traditional way, it is easy to assume one of two things. Either I probably cannot qualify, or DSCR means I do not have to worry about income at all. Both assumptions can be dangerous. The truth is usually more specific. The property matters, the numbers matter, the loan program matters, the full scenario matters, and until you understand which pieces may matter in your case, you are left guessing. That is why I created the DSCR Readiness Assessment. It gives Michigan residential real estate investors a simple way to check whether they may be ready to explore DSCR financing now, or whether there may be a few things to prepare first. And that distinction is important because not everyone who takes the assessment should schedule a call right away. Some people may be ready for a deeper review. Others may need to gather rent estimates, clarify their down payment, understand their credit picture, or get more realistic about the type of property they are considering. Both outcomes are useful because both outcomes give you clarity, and clarity is the whole point. A lot of investors try to do this in the wrong order. They find the property first, then they ask about financing, then they try to force the numbers to work. Then they realize they are not sure what the lender may count, what the rent estimate needs to show, or whether the property even fits the path they had in mind. That can create stress. It can waste time, and it can make the process feel more confusing than it needs to be. The better approach is to ask the readiness questions before you get too deep into the search, before you fall in love with the property, before you assume your tax returns are the problem, before you assume DSCR is the solution, before you spend weeks chasing something that may not fit. Because the hidden question is not just, can I get a DSCR loan? The better question is, am I ready to explore one based on my goals, my property scenario, and the numbers I have right now? That is the question most people skip, and it is the question the assessment helps you start answering. When you begin the DSCR readiness assessment, you will answer a few simple questions in plain English. No complicated mortgage language, no pressure to know everything up front. Just practical questions about what you are trying to do, whether you have a property in mind, what kind of Michigan residential investment property you are considering, what you know about the estimated rent, your price range, your down payment or equity, your general credit picture, and your timeline. Then you will receive a readiness score and a recommended next step. And this is where the assessment becomes useful. If your answers suggest you may be ready now, your next step will be to schedule a call with Treeside Financial. That call can help review the scenario in more detail and determine whether DSCR financing may be worth exploring. But if your answers suggest you may not be ready yet, that does not mean you failed. It simply means your next step may be preparation. In that case, you will be guided toward a DSCR preparation checklist so you can understand what to work on first. Either way, you are not left guessing. You get a direction, you get a next step, you get a clearer sense of what matters. And that may change how you look at every investment property after this. Because once you understand your readiness, you stop shopping blindly. You stop wondering whether every property is a fit. You stop relying on random videos to explain your specific situation. And you start looking at opportunities with a clearer lens. That is what serious investors do. They do not just chase properties. They prepare. They ask better questions. They understand the numbers before they move, and they choose clarity before pressure. So if you are thinking about investing in Michigan residential real estate, if you are self-employed or have income that is harder to document traditionally, if you have heard about DSCR loans but still do not fully understand how they may apply to you, start here. Start the DSCR readiness assessment. Answer a few simple questions. Get your readiness score. See your recommended next step, and then decide what makes sense from there. No pressure, no confusing jargon, just clarity. Click the button below to begin. Start the DSCR readiness assessment.